Well, the DC Studios news is running thick, and once again, we have multiple updates. James Gunn has reached out to the internet once again to slap down a trade this time, and we've got a really interesting breakdown of what went down behind the scenes surrounding Black Adam. Let's break down all the drama and dive into the current DC Universe news. Well, like we were saying, the new DC Studios has been somewhat of a soap opera, with dramatic story after dramatic story, and today's update is no exception. We're going to take a couple minutes to talk about what happened with The Rock trying to put the Black Adam at the center of the old DCU, and once again, James Gunn has reached out to slap down rumors about Wonder Woman, as well as Ezra Miller. So let's take a couple minutes to dive into all the news. Before we do that though, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We want to be your place for all the Marvel and DC news. We're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently and try to make sure you are well informed. Well, let's kick all this off with The Rock and Black Adam. Well, the other day, an article dropped from Variety, and it really dove into a lot of details about some of the stuff going on at DC Studios and the old DCEU. Now, part of this focused on Black Adam's Dwayne Johnson and his failed bid to basically try to take control of the DCEU. I find this a pretty incredible story, and quite honestly, had to be done with an ego that matches The Rock's muscle mass. Now, what we found out was, shortly after Warner Bros. Discovery wrapped up that merger back in April, The Rock basically approached CEO David Zaslav. Say what you want about The Rock, but the guy really does have a pair. Now, when he did this, he brought with him a new version of the DC Universe, and it would revolve around, well, quite obviously, Black Adam. The plan was to expand the Teth Adam franchise to something quite big, which would have given us a Man of Steel sequel, with an endgame being that Superman vs. Black Adam showdown he has been pining for years. Now, apparently Johnson's ex-brother-in-law, Hiram Garcia, and producer Beau Flynn were both part of this plan to spearhead a new DC universe for Warner Bros., but all did not go as planned. Apparently, these efforts from the wrestler went down very poorly with the executive management. Going around former DC boss Walter Hamada definitely ruffled a lot of feathers, and although that's how Johnson managed to get Cavill back in Black Adam, overall it probably didn't help his plan. Now apparently to get Cavill back in, new Warner Bros. Pictures co-heads Michael DeLuca and Pan Adby approved that, but in the same report it was revealed they had been looking for a new Superman for almost 4 years, dating back to 2018, which is pretty incredible considering the series of reports we've had over the last couple of years. This means a lot of those earlier reports about Superman being gone were totally true, and apparently this came via Toby Emmerich. Now, obviously there's a lot of changes behind the scene, but when Black Adam released to negative reviews and brought in less than $400 million on a $235 million budget, that pretty much crushed any ideas of going anywhere with this plan. Apparently, Johnson also worsened his relationship with the studio because additionally he pushed for a producing credit for DC League of Super Pets, only to do, and I quote, little to promote it. Apparently, that wasn't all. There was also some shenanigans with his tequila brand being part of the New York premiere, and ultimately led to one insider saying, quote, his demands increased and the returns just weren't there. Johnson said that the hierarchy of the DC Universe would change with his movie Black Adam, and quite honestly seemed to take great joy in taking credit for Henry Cavill's return. He did this while fielding questions about possibly taking charge of DC as he promoted the movie for Warner Bros. As one report said, Hollywood is not professional wrestling, and moves that benefited his wrestling career often clearly didn't fly in the movie business. Basically, his whole plan backfired on him, and although he has spoke with Gunn and Safran about a potential future for The Rock's Black Adam in their universe, this whole project has reached pretty much an end spot for quite a while. Now, to be fair, this all comes from Variety, and that same report from Variety actually drew a little bit of James Gunn's response in the last day or two, and it saw him debunking several things. Now, that same report claimed that Wonder Woman would not be part of DC Studios' plan for the first couple years, and it didn't take long before he was asked by a fan to debunk the report, and he quite honestly obliged. Check it out. Now, to be fair, Gunn always chooses his words really carefully, and only confirmed that Wonder Woman would be part of the DCU. He didn't really give us a time frame, And he also didn't confirm anything about Gal Gadot, but he does make it pretty clear Wonder Woman definitely will be part of the plan, and if I'm guessing, the Trinity will be the focus of the initial run of movies, and she will definitely be front and center. The recasting question is a big deal for most fans, and with Henry Cavill making an exit and Ben Affleck basically gone too, I don't think there's a high probability that she returns in the role. Now, that same report made a lot of claims about Ezra Miller's Flash and the possibility of him continuing to play Barry Allen following the release of The Flash next summer. Now, this is a pretty contentious story, and I think it's actually something that's still forming. But if I was making bets, I'm pretty sure Miller is ultimately going to be out, especially if the rest of the Trinity characters are being recast. Now, he was asked by a fan specifically about this, and he kind of danced around it a little bit, but he did give us a clue on the 10-year plan. A tweet asked him if he could discuss at all the report from Variety in regards to Ezra Miller, and the notion that his slate of movies was only 3 years worth of projects. Gunn responded with, "I don't know what's out there about Ezra, but our slate is 8 to 10 years. But we will be announcing some of it this month." A 10-year walk from me sounds awfully like Marvel's Phase 1 through 3, and I'm pretty sure he's putting together a plan that generally goes along a very similar roadmap. The fact that we're about to get an announcement this month will probably be the first phase of that new world, which to me is incredibly big news because we've been clamoring for it since he took over, and it makes it pretty clear to me they've been working day and night putting together this plan if they're about to make an announcement. Now, as far as Ezra Miller goes, that report seemed to indicate that Warner Brothers was entertaining the possibilities of him staying because he's doing apparently very well with his mental health treatment. I am a person who believes in second chances, always. But I think in this case here, there's probably already been a couple of second chances, and the public PR disaster that has been Miller over the last year is unlikely to resolve itself by the time the movie releases. Honestly, if he stays out of trouble and does a really good job promoting the movie and seems to have made a marked improvement, there's probably not a reason why he couldn't continue as the Flash, except for the simple fact that James Gunn is recasting Superman and is likely to recast many of these people. I don't know where Ezra fits into the new world. To be fair though, Flashpoint is the next movie, and Ezra continuing on in this DC world might work because he's simply the Flash character. If he alters the timeline greatly by going back and forth in time, that could facilitate this new world that James Gunn will be in charge of. And if Ezra stays out of trouble, he might be honestly one of the only characters from the old world that has a very clear place in the new world. Whether the public accepts that or not, we'll have to wait and see. It might ultimately be very fortuitous that this movie was based on Flashpoint from the very beginning. James Gunn basically doing some level of reboot to the DCU is quite obvious to many fans, and having this already in place and literally already being made could be a key in making all of this work. The movie's rumored to be really good, so I'm fairly hopeful for how The Flash ultimately works out, even if Miller is no longer in the role. Now, what goes on with DC over the next week, we're going to have to wait and see. As these reports start coming out, Gunn keeps slapping them down, so we're going to follow it pretty closely. I think this new era of the DC universe that we're in now is absolutely perfect because we have true management feedback, something we've never had before.